Yeah, I'm Beat, and he is
I'm Will. He's from
Germany, and he's from.
the States. It's good to meet you all.
Okay, let's get started.
And this is trickier than I expected it to be. Oh, beautiful. Okay, everyone good? Thumbs scale? No, I'm just kidding. um, so, um, we are going to be giving your sermon today as a pair. Because we love each other so much.
That was
And
not planned.
I think Glenn mentioned briefly that him and I went on Wednesday to go evangelizing in the market, Swanley, yeah? Yeah, I can, so hard to remember the names of things around here. But we were handing out Bibles and stuff, and after we talked to that guy on the bench, we went back into the market, and I met a guy. He was like leaning against a wall, kind of minding his own business, and I went, I want to talk to him. I walk up, I hand him a Bible. He tells me that he doesn't want it because it would be wasted on him. And I ask him, of course, oh, why would it be wasted on you? He's like, oh, you see, I'm not religious. Which, of course, for me, I'm like, let's go. This is an opening for a good conversation, maybe. Why are you not religious? And he basically talked to Glenn and I for a little bit, and he kind of let us know that one of the biggest reasons why he kind of gave up the idea of ever having faith of any kind, regardless of whether or not it was Christian faith, was because he was this moment when he was with his little daughter, right? And he was watching the news, or he was looking at pictures or something, and he saw that really famous picture from the Vietnam War of that girl who's got like the burns from napalm. Yeah, thank you, Glenn. She's got napalm burns on her, and she's in the middle of the street. Many of you might have seen it. It's a horrible, horrible story, picture and everything. But you see, when he saw it, he couldn't reconcile how God could be both loving and good and perfect in the way that we understand him to be, but at the same time allow things like this to happen. Now, this is really common. We've all heard this before, yeah. People who don't want to follow Jesus because they don't understand how he could be good and have awful things happen at the same time. Well, you see, part of the reason why I believe that this was a struggle for him was because he didn't have sufficient enough roots in his understanding of who God is to be able to withstand when something came up. And many of you know the parable of the sower, yeah? I'm not going to go into it very much, but his roots in his understanding of Christ weren't deep enough so that when things came against him, he fell over, he fell out of it. And so I think something that's quite important for both Bea and I is that we need to understand different aspects of God's character and be able to reconcile them without throwing any of them away. And if you can't do that, then your own roots in Jesus aren't going to be deep enough to deal with problems when they come up.
So you're saying is that we need a deeper understanding of God's character, so we're not falling away of him.
Exactly, yeah. So if we can reconcile it. So I think, you know what, I think we can agree there's kind of two bigger aspects of God's character that often kind of conflict with each other, at least according to our less amazingly huge brains. And that is just like, you know, the God of like Revelation and the Old Testament is he can seem kind of vengeful and angry sometimes, you know. He's got like he's conquering nations and rallying armies and destroying the world and hellfire and I'm just get saved or you're gonna go down, you know. And then you have like the God who's like, oh, teddy bear Jesus, I love you so much. You know, you gotta bury his face in your chest when you cry, and like he loves you and he cares after you. And it's true, he does. That is a very valid aspect of who Jesus is. But at the same time, he still is this conquering Jesus, you know, on the white horse kind of picture, right? So how can we understand both of these aspects of his character and say that's the same guy, and simultaneously not throw either of them away and value both of those?
Yeah, so we want to dive into these aspects of his character a little bit, and of course we're looking into scripture. So we're opening Revelation 19.
Give it a second.
From verse 11.
Yeah.
Yes. Revelation 19, verse 11. I'll just read it once, so hear carefully. Then I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. The one sitting on it is called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and makes war. His eyes are like a flame of fire, and on his head are many diadems. And he has a name written that no one knows but himself. He is clothed in a robe dipped in blood, and the name by which he is called is the Word of God. And the armies of heaven, arrayed in fine linen, white and pure, were following him on white horses. From his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations, and he will rule them with a rod of iron. He will tread the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God the Almighty. On his robe and on his thigh he has a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So here in that scripture, we see that really intense God coming from above on the white horse with a sword in his hand, or coming out of his mouth, fire in his eyes, comes to judge the world and rule the nations. So really intense, powerful God coming with justice and judgment.
Mm-hmm. Right, but if we flip to all the way to a different part of the Bible, we'll go to Psalm 139, one of my favorite Psalms in the Bible. It starts with, "You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all of my ways." And if we skip forward to about verse 7, "Where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I ascend to heaven, you are there." Wait, no, I just said that. "If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as the day, for darkness is as light with you. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well." This is a beautiful painting of God's character, showing how he loves us so much that not only did he just understand that one day we were going to be born, when we were conceived, he carefully crafted us in our own mother's womb as we were developing. That is so much detail that he's putting into each and every single billions of people on the planet, yeah? And as we live our lives, we cannot escape from him because he always knows where we are. He's like a helicopter mom, like he's following us around like, but he sees and cares about every aspect of our lives. So when we looked at that, we're like, wow, he's really crazy how much he cares for me. But when compared to the Revelation God that we read, like, is God compassionate and caring?
Or is he that vengeful God, full of justice bringing?
Or is he like individually crafting, creating, and following each and every single one of us?
Or is he the God on the white horse and ruling all the nations?
Exactly. So to kind of get a slightly better picture of what we're trying to talk about, we're actually going to go to another different part of the Bible. We love this book. We're going to Job.
Yeah, Job. And we first want to give a bright overview of Job. So Job is the righteous and man and blessed by God, full of richness and possessions. And then the Satan comes to God and asks him, "Hey, can I make something bad for him? Because I think then he won't be faithful in you anymore." So God allows him, and he takes all the possessions away from, Satan takes all the possessions away from Job, not Job, Job. Yeah, probably I will say again, Job. Job. Yeah, never mind. Both words. And then he also is allowed to take away his health, and so everything is going really bad for Job. And then these three friends come to him to encourage him, and what do they say?
So Job's three friends, they come up to Job, and they kind of have an argument about how it is or why it is that he landed in the position he is. See, their argument is, well, so we know that God is just, always just and good, and we know that you're clearly suffering and have had everything supernaturally taken away from you, so therefore you must have sinned.
That's what the friends say. But Job answers, "I am righteous. I did nothing wrong. And yeah, I believe that God is just and that he is good, but I'm suffering. I can't unite these two. I'm just." So he kind of thinks of God, he blames God to be unjust because he is suffering but he's just. He thinks he's just. He did nothing wrong. So we look into what he says about God in Job 9:22 and 23.
He says, "It is all one. Therefore I say, he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. When disaster brings sudden death, he, and he is God, of course, mocks at the calamity of the innocent."
Yeah. So so he says God destroys both the blameless and the wicked. So he doesn't separate from the suffering. Everybody gets suffering. So it doesn't matter if you are blameless or innocent or if you are the wicked. And then Job 16 verse 9.
He says, "He has torn me in his wrath and hated me. He has gnashed his teeth at me. My adversary sharpens his eyes against me." He paints God as his adversary who hates him.
Yeah, that's crazy actually. He says, God, you hate me because I'm suffering, but I'm innocent. So, and then he cries out to God, give me an explanation. Why am I suffering? I'm innocent. Give me an explanation. He says in Job 31, verse 35, here is my signature. And never mind. He says, in this book, he says, here is my signature. Let the Almighty answer me. So he wants an explanation.
So instead of answering or explaining to Job why he does all of this to him or why he has allowed any of this to happen to him, which is what Job wants, he's like, explain, please. God actually has a very tactful answer to all this, doesn't he?
Yeah, he comes in a storm and he begins talking like that. I will question you. You make it known to me. And then he says a lot of different questions. Maybe when you read it, you always I was like, huh? Why don't you give an explanation? He asked a lot of questions like,
where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth?
Okay.
I do want to read it. He says, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Or have you commanded the morning since your days began? Or have you comprehended the expanse of the earth? And then later he says, you know, for you were born then, and the numbers of your days is great.
So in these scriptures, I repeat those if you couldn't catch it up that quickly. So he asked, were you there when I did the universe? Were you there? Or have you comprehend the morning stars? Do you understand all the creation? And of course, these are all rhetorical questions. And then he read the last verse. I love this verse. I read it again. You know, for you were born then, and the number of your days is great. That's what God tells Job. I love this verse because he kind of jokes with Job. Job, yeah. He kind of jokes with Job sarcastically. You know, for your days is great. I made you that early, and so you have such a long life. I gave you such a long life.
He's calling him old.
Yeah. So I gave you such a long life, so you must know. So he's like, I created you, so you must know it. So it's really funny. I think it's funny. So God is God is showing in all of that His wisdom, His knowledge of the world, of His creation, and His power too. He can command the mornings, and He's also challenging Job's presence. Were you there when I did all that? And then in the next chapter, he begins to go really into the details. He says, "Can you guide the bear with its children?" Or then chapter 39, verse 1, "Do you know when the mountain goats give birth?" So these questions are so detailed. We had these big questions about the universe. Can you comprehend the universe? And then he goes into the detail of the creation. Do you understand when the mountain goats give birth? That's such a detail, and we see not only this powerful God over the whole creation, but also this caring God in the little things. So we see, two characters of God in the questions that he answers Job.
Exactly, yeah. And after really challenging different aspects of Job's wisdom, he goes into, I love this chapter. In Job 40, he kind of goes into a bit more of a challenge specifically to Job. He kind of sets Job in a place where Job has to answer the questions for himself. He says, adorn yourself with Job 40:10-14. He says, adorn yourself with majesty and dignity. Clothe yourself with glory and splendor. Pour out the overflowings of your anger look on everyone who is proud and abase him. Look on everyone who is proud and bring him low, and tread down the wicked where they stand. Hide them all in the dust together. Bind their faces in the world below. Then will I also acknowledge to you that your own right hand can save you. He says, Job, now that you see all of the things that I do in a day, and now that I've essentially given you my job description, or at least a tiny molecule of my job description, do you think that you could do it? I mean, like, if you personally can manage all of this, and at the same time, make sure every single wicked person gets exactly what they deserve, and every single good person gets exactly what they deserve, then maybe I'll say, oh, dang, Job, you were right. You were right all along. Your works can save you from injustice. So he challenges Job individually. Do you have enough wisdom to be able to do what I do? Or do you have enough wisdom to be able to say what is just and what is unjust? And in this, he kind of illustrates Job's grand lack of perspective. And all of us, each and every single one of us, have, at the end of the day, a huge lack of perspective because we simply don't have the wisdom or the knowledge necessary to comprehend everything that's going on in a day. All we can see is the narrow path of our own life and those, maybe some of that we affect, right? But if our lives are this, and like God's perspective is not just this, but also the entire room that we're in, who are we to challenge his justice or his mercy? And so in this case, he says, Job, you have this very narrow horizon. You might be very wealthy and have a lot of influence, but at the same time, you really don't see everything going on in the world. And through this, he illustrates that Job has to trust God, that we have to trust God in his justice because we don't have room to challenge him in it.
So yeah, we have to trust God that he I'll look quickly into my notes. We have to trust God that he is just, and we can't and that we can experience injustice in our lives. For like Job, he experienced injustice in his life. But at the end, we have to trust him that he is right, and at the end, that he still loves us. He still loved Job the whole entire time, even if he suffered in his eyes unjustly. At the end, he gave him wealth. He gave him 2 times or multiple times more wealth.
Right, because he honors him for his willingness to ask the questions. Yeah.
And we have to trust him that God combines these 2 aspects of his character, justice and mercy, in a perfect way. And now I want to ask this question: why is God justice and mercy at the same time? We want to go deeper into that. Why he needs the both things, that he don't rules the world just with only justice, but also with mercy in his character. So he is this God on a white horse, justice, and he is the God who is individually caring. Why is he like that? And we want to read one verse of Job again, chapter 38, verse 26 and 27. Who brings rain on a land where no man is, on the desert in which there is no man, to satisfy the waste and desolate land, and to make the ground proud with grass? So who brings, verse 26, who brings rain on the desert? That's what God asks. And if the world would be ruled with the understanding of justice of Job, so Job's understanding of the world is only justice, ruled with justice the world, so I wouldn't suffer because I'm innocent. Then the desert wouldn't deserve rain. The desert wouldn't deserve rain. So justice is not the most important virtue in ruling the world. Wisdom is. And what I want to say, true, you might suffer unjustly, but you might, the innocent might suffer, But in a world where just is ruled with only justice, there wouldn't be room for mistakes either. So it can't be ruled with only justice. We have to have space for mistakes. Otherwise, we all would be lost. And and on the other hand,
Right, if the world was ruled with only love and mercy exclusively without taking into account the justice that needs to happen, then we would still have an issue, right? If there's just love and mercy, then evil would completely take over. I mean, Satan would be essentially El Presidente of the world, and nobody would ever prosper in their innocence.
yeah, so that's why God must be combining these both, justice and love and mercy. He has to be both at the same time. And so we need a universe who is ruled with justice and love at the same time. And then when you would be God, how would you do that? Like, it's crazy. How would you determine who gets what? Who has to suffer at some points innocently, and who gets mercy? So how do you do that? Because there is always evil in the world. There's always mercy in the world. How? Which fundamental values would you use to determine who gets what? So we don't know. We can't. We are not wise enough to understand that. But God is. God can do that, and God is inviting us to humble ourselves, to say, yeah, we are not wise enough. We have to trust you, and we trust you. We trust you that you combine justice and mercy in a perfect way for us. And we trust you that you love us, and we trust you that you do it right for everybody.
Right, so what you're saying is that if we were living in Job's world of perfect justice, where if you're innocent, you prosper, if you're guilty, you get shoved in the ground, there would be no room for Jesus' self-sacrificial love for us, because if he was innocent, he never could have died.
Yeah, that's true. If we would live in a world where just is only ruled with justice, then Jesus couldn't die because he was innocent and he couldn't suffer. That's actually a cool point. He couldn't die. So we need also this mercy in this world. And when we trust God, that He is the wise one in this world, where love and justice meet, it's true. We might unjustly suffer, but we will always experience love we don't deserve. We always experience love we don't deserve. We don't deserve that, but we experience that. Yeah, and may the Holy Spirit continuously make us aware of His wisdom, and and may you see Jesus as the one who innocently suffered, so that we can experience love we don't deserve.
Right, so if we quickly go over just the stuff that we've touched on briefly, like we talked about Job, we talked about how God has different aspects to his personality that we need to be able to reconcile, and now we're here realizing that we can't understand how God reconciles these different aspects of his character, but we need to trust that if anybody can do it, he can do it. And we need to trust that if he didn't do it, then life would be a lot worse for us. So, moving forward, we have to understand him. Well, we don't have to understand him. We have to try to better grasp this aspect of who he is, so that our roots, like I was saying in the beginning, can go deeper in him. So I want to challenge you guys. How do you personally view God? Where is it that you fail to see different aspects of God's character? What is it that you're kind of pushing aside because it's too difficult to deal with? And if you don't know, ask him. He'll tell you. He wants you to know. And then through knowing that, you personally can learn how to grow in it. And you can try to at least admit that God can be all these different things. I know for me, I spent a long period of my life and even still now, not being able to understand God's love for me. I didn't get it. I didn't get how God could be the way that he was and simultaneously be caring for me. And frankly, I didn't want him to be. Because what I understood was a God that was a God of justice. And that's what I wanted. I wanted justice. I didn't really want the caring part. But especially throughout the last 4 months, he's been highlighting that to me, and he's been showing me, yes, the justice, yes. But you need to understand how much I care for you as an individual. And through that, I've been able to grow so much deeper in my relationship with him. If I lived my entire life not getting that part of who God was, I would not be able to be standing here today talking about him at all, because I wouldn't be following him. Because inevitably, when hardship comes up, I have no one to lean on. Or on the vice versa, if I'm believing that God is a God of perfect love and peace, and oh, he's so nice to me, but I don't ever understand any other part of him, we'll be like that man in the marketplace, yeah? When something terrible happens, once again, either to us or just in general, how are we going to be able to reconcile that with the God that we love and know? We can't. And so oftentimes what people do is they'll just push it aside. They won't deal with it. They won't think about it. But is that healthy? Is it healthy to push aside aspects of God that we don't like? No, it's important to be able to see it and to be able to grow in that aspect of our relationship with him. So if you see him as either one of these things, your roots aren't deep enough. And sooner or later, you might find yourself in a situation like the three friends, trying to say that God works according to your worldview or according to your perspective. So once again, I invite you to open up your perspective a little bit, open up your worldview, open up your ideas of who God is, and through that, we all can mature in our relationship with him, yeah? So I think unless Mr. Beat has any points that he feels we missed, think about it nice and hard.
What do I want to highlight? Do I want to say that with active and passive?
I mean, if you want to, yeah. It's a good side note. Side note section.
Side note. We said that we have to trust God in all of that, what he does, and that he is, that we have to trust him as the God who rules everything perfectly.
It's very important to be able to trust him in that, yeah.
And that he also, we have to trust him, that he loves everybody. And yeah, we have to trust this God. And it doesn't mean that we have to trust him as the one who holds everything in his hands and that we can't do anything. What I want to say is like, if we trust him as the wise God, we are not passive. That's what I want to say. That it's not a thing that we stay passive in that, but that we take it. Yes, I trust you that you lead me. I trust you that you that you are a good God, a caring God for me, and that I can step in that and can go forward in that. That I don't stay passive and such as say, yeah, God holds everything in his hand. He's the wise God. It's an active thing.
Right. And to make it a little bit more of a personal illustration as to the active part of that, so I believe personally that God can and will speak to us if we want him to. I hope we're kind of on the same page. And something that I realized more recently is that in my faith or in my trust of God being able to do that, I was being extremely passive. I was saying, well, I mean, he can talk to me. That's faith, right? Well, no. I needed to become more active in trusting not that he can talk to me, but that he will talk to me. And in a situation where I was praying or I was trying to hear from him, I needed to expect him to talk to me. And then he would. And then he started doing it a lot once I was saying, oh, he's going to talk to me right now. And he's like, yes, I will. And then it's opening that conversation. I mean, I don't walk up to Bea and go, hey, how's it going? And then just kind of look away because I know he can respond to that if he wants to, but like he might not, so I'm just like really going to. It needs to be an active relationship of trust between me and Bet. Trust that he'll respond to what I have to say, and trust that I'll talk back. So yeah, that's totally big side note segment we weren't expecting, but I guess we'll wrap up. Well, we will wrap up our time here today. I'll pray for you guys, and then Glenn has something for us, yeah? Cool. So, Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for everybody in this room. I thank you so much that they are always, each and every single one of us, walking and learning to trust you better, more and more, no matter how much of our lives we've spent doing it. God, I ask that you give us the strength to seek you, the strength to learn about you, God, that desire, that curiosity to not settle with just one aspect of your character, God, but that desire, that burning need to know more of you, God. Give us that hunger for knowledge, that hunger for understanding, God. Fill us up with your Spirit today, Father, as we go out, and teach us more and more about you, how much you love us, how much you care for us, and how much of you we don't understand, which is kind of scary, but it's so cool. God, you are beautiful, you are amazing,